Hey, sofrito lovers, this is Ben Ramos bringing you another mukbang from my palatial home here in the Northwest Bronx. The Bronx is the home of hip hop and salsa. I am bringing you some delicious Filipino pork stew. Yes, you heard me correctly, Filipino pork stew. For all of y'all that are like, all you ever do is eat Puerto Rican food, look at that, Filipino pork stew. Oh, it's wonderful. It's got wonderful chunks of pork, mira, some nice pieces of pork. It's got some potatoes, potatoes, carrots, and peas. Of course, some onions and peppers. Mira, mira, mira. Look at this great bite. Look at this great bite. So, frito lovers, some delicious Filipino pork stew. This, excuse me, this wonderful Wednesday night as I choke on my own food. I cooked this, by the way. This is not restaurant made at all, homemade. Not tonight though. I did make it over the weekend. It was my Sunday dinner. Pero me quedó por la maceta. It's just delicious. Me quedó bien bueno. Really good, really good. So, frito lovers, how are you? I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are resting, relaxing. It is a deep freeze in New York City right now. The whole city feels like it's in the negatives. Yeah, guys. When it's actually warm, it's like in the teens. And when it's in the wind whips up, it is in the negatives. Hace frío, un frío del demonio. It is freezing. I'm just mixing up the rice a little bit. I want the white rice to mix in a little bit. Hey, sofrito lovers. Sorry for the little technical hiccup, but everything is fine. I was about to tell you guys. So I was in the middle of, just talking about I'm mixing up the rice. It is cold, and a stew like this, a nice little stew, is exactly what we need. So, frito lovers, I'm a huge fan of Filipino food. Love, 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 love Filipino food. My love affair with Filipino food started in high school. My senior year of high school, I made two really good Filipino friends. Maria Castro. Yeah, sounds very Filipino. The Philippines was conquered by Spain for hundreds of years. So there's a lot of Filipinos that have Spanish surnames and Spanish sounding names. Well, Maria Castro and her twin sister, Annalisa. Two beautiful, 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 beautiful Filipino girls that I met in my senior year at Brooklyn Tech High School here in New York City. And I was a foodie, they were foodies. We talked a lot about food, we talked a lot about life, we talked a lot about culture. I had a little bit of a crush on Annalisa, but Annalisa wouldn't give me the time of day, which was fine. But I did kind of have a little bit of a crush on her. But yeah, so sometimes they would bring food from home and let me taste it. And then I started bringing Puerto Rican food, that, leftovers. My mom used to be like, why are you taking leftovers to school? They feed you there. My mother was like, there's a free lunch program. Why are you taking food? I'm like, Mommy, you've never had the cafeteria food at Brooklyn Tech High School. And as a senior, they wouldn't even let us off of campus to go eat. Other high schools, when you were a senior, they let you out to go eat. That was like a senior privilege. Not Brooklyn Tech. They like to keep us locked up there like it was jail. So I would bring to school Puerto Rican food leftovers for lunch, but also to do some tradesies with Annalisa and Maria, the Castro sisters, the Filipino Castro sisters. And we would talk about science fiction and Star Trek and all this nerdy stuff that all of us at Brooklyn Tech, we were all nerds. Annalisa and Maria were fraternal twin sisters, by the way. Fraternal twin sisters, very, very alike on many levels, but also two very different individual girls. And like I said, Annalisa was my favorite. I had such a crush on her. And Annalisa was the one that loved to trade food with me. She developed the love of arroz con gandule, rice with green pigeon peas, a very Puerto Rican staple. And I learned to love longaniza and bitter melon and lumpia and, you know, pancit and all this wonderful Filipino food. So, and as I went away to college and lost track of people, you know, I just always kept an interest in Filipino food. I love Filipino food. In fact, you know, there's tons of mukbangs on Filipino food, especially Filipino fast food like Jollibee, the chicken place, which here in New York, there's like 2 or 3 Jollibees that have opened up finally. The Chicken Joy. Oh, the first time I ever truly tasted Filipino spaghetti were the Castro sisters. And then, of course, I ended up, you know, having it again in Jollibee. The homemade version is a lot sweeter and better. Yeah, so it's a Filipino spaghetti dish in which they use banana ketchup, not tomato ketchup, but banana ketchup. And it's sweet, it's savory, it's tangy, it's delicious. It's got Filipino hot dogs in it, yes. Ground beef and Filipino hot dogs. Filipino food is just, you know, very interesting. There are a lot of correlations with Puerto Rican food because there's a lot of Puerto Rican, well, a lot of New World Caribbean influences were taken by the Spanish over to Asia. So that's a reason why, you know, certain products from the Caribbean and Latin America are in the Philippines. Again, the colonialism, the hundreds of years of colonialism, but also, you know, the trade. You know, how did cassava, yuca, make its way to the Philippines? By way of, you know, the transatlantic slavery and colonization and the exchange of fruits and vegetables, you know. Man, this mukbang just got real food history focused. So, you know, there's a lot of by way of the Spanish, a lot of like cultural similarities between Puerto Rican food and Filipino food, but also vast differences. You know, Filipino food, the main base will always be like Asian food, you know, products from Asia that don't exist in Latin America or the Caribbean. So, you know, calamansi, you know, those cute little citrus, super sour, like little citrus fruits that they squeeze all over their food instead of like using lemon. You know, that's very Filipino. Patis, which is like the Filipino fish sauce. I learned about all of that. They learned to eat empanadas and empanadillas from me, and I learned to eat lumpia from them. So it was a food cultural exchange that I loved. Because even at 17, 18 years old, I was un comelon. I was a big mouth. I love to eat. So, and I love to eat, you know, even then, I love to eat outside of my culture. I think I mentioned this in videos past. You know, I grew up in a very Puerto Rican home. And my mom and dad had this very provincial way of looking at food. And what I mean by that is, you know, my parents did not believe in eating outside of your ethnicity. You know, occasionally, you know, they would have Chinese food, they would have some pizza. You know, it was weird because you should never eat outside of your ethnicity, but if it was American food, it was okay. It was very strange. If they saw me eating Japanese food or Greek food, you know, I would be met with, why are you eating that? You're not Japanese. Why are you eating that? You're not Filipino. Why are you eating that? You're not this, you're not that. I'm like, because I can eat it. It's food. It's still edible. There's no ethnic requirement to eating a gyro, an ethnic requirement to liking sushi, you know. But to my parents, who were very old world, very hibaro, very like from the country, and sometimes, you know, a very limited palate and limited. They didn't that food exploratory vibe that I have, that desire to explore food is a unique trait to me. I didn't inherit that from them. Again, to my parents' credit, you know, going to get takeout Chinese, getting pizza, getting burgers, that stuff, because it was like American food was okay. Especially since my mother used to be like, you know, American food is the blandest food, and if it was bland, it was safe. You know, I grew up with the mom that like the very Puerto Rican mom that talked about how pizza was not real food. My mother would ask me in Spanish, "What did you have for dinner?" "Oh, mommy, I was downtown. I came out of school, came out of work. I had a quick slice of pizza." Pizza. Pizza no es comida. Eso no es comida. Pizza is not food. It's not food. You know, mommy, I was downtown. You know, I was near Little India, so I had like an Indian curry. Blah blah. ¿Qué eso? What do you get curry? That's not real food. Real food is only rice and beans. You know. And why are you eating Indian food? You're not Indian. You know. Again. The parents had a different perspective on food than I did. A different perspective on the world than I did. But yeah, the Castro, getting back to the point, circling back to my original point, the Castro sisters at Brooklyn Tech High School were the ones that introduced me to Filipino food and started a lifelong love of Filipino cuisine. In college, you know, when I was really exploring restaurants and food culture in Washington, D.C. as both a journalist and a foodie, oh, I love some of the Filipino restaurants that unfortunately don't exist anymore, but I love them. One of my favorite Filipino YouTubers got the recipe for this from her channel. I love watching her channel. I'm going to be doing, you don't be surprised if you find me doing more mukbangs with Filipino food. But sofrito lovers, lifelong obsession con la comida filipina. I love Filipino food. Guys, it's really good. I know, right? How self-serving. I'm like, oh, this thing that I cooked is delicious. Oh my God. Guys, I had such a crush on Annalisa. Oh my God. I never shot my, what is that? I never shooted my shot or whatever it is. Whatever the phrase is, I never went out. I never asked her out. I never, pushed it past our lunchtime hangouts and occasional after school hangouts. The sisters were always together, so it was also kind of weird. Like, I'm not going to ask you out in front of your sister. I had a friend, Wayne, who was like, I've watched you guys. It is very, very obvious that you like Annalisa. It's also very obvious that Maria, her sister, likes you. And I was like, no way. So he was like, yep. He was like, I watched the dynamic amongst the three of you. You gush over Annalisa and Maria gushes over you. And he was like, and Anna, he was one of the first people to be like, you're crushing on the wrong sister. And I'm like, oh, I had such a crush on her. I thought she was the most beautiful girl, so sweet, so cool. a little confusing, being a queer guy. But listen, life works out the way it's supposed to work out. And I say that because 100 years later, after we all graduated high school, went to college, everyone lost track of each other, blah, 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 blah. I ran across Annalisa Castro at a Filipino workers event. And Annalisa and I looked at each other and she was like, I know you from where? And I said, I think we know each other from high school, right? Annalisa. And this was, I don't know how many decades after high school. Excuse me, I don't know how many decades after high school. And I at the time was going out with some other guy, and I introduced that guy to her, and she introduced me to her wife. So listen, it all worked out the way it was supposed to work out. I asked about her sister. Her sister never became the electrical engineer she thought she was going to be. Her sister ended up working for a Filipino women's charity. She lives in England, working with the Filipino diaspora in England, and spends a lot of time in Spain as well, helping with a lot of the Filipino diaspora in Spain as well, securing human rights, women's rights. That was Maria. Annalisa doing something very similar, but here working with the garment workers in Queens and in Long Island, helping to organize and secure their human rights. So, and their workers' rights. So, hey, everything worked out the way it was supposed to. I didn't become the chemist and or doctor that I was being trained at Brooklyn Tech. I became a journalist and eventually a teacher. Maria became what she became, and Annalisa had also been like in engineering. I don't remember what time, maybe electrical engineering along with her sister, who knows. Ended up working in the nonprofit sector just like I do, working in the Filipino community in New York City along with her beautiful wife. It all works out, folks. It all works out. But funny enough, even back when we met up, and this was, she and I ran into each other years ago. I haven't seen her since. We laughed and we reminisced, and I told her I had the biggest crush on you. She goes, I know. And you know that Maria, and I'm like, I had heard Maria liked me. She was like, yeah, you had the biggest crush. She also kind of agreed with Wayne. She was like, you had the crush on the wrong sister. And I was like, well, it all worked out the way it was supposed to work out. But I told her, still love lumpia and longanisa and kari kari and bitter melon. And I said, the best lumpia is still the lumpia your mom used to make. And she was like, I'll let mom know that. She said that she revealed to me that as kids, they went through the trouble of packing extra just so that I could trade with them. And I said, it's the same thing with me. My mom never understood why I participated in a free lunch program at high school, and I was packing leftovers. And I was like, it's not just for me. I never told my mother it wasn't just for me, but my mom never knew that I was packing leftovers, not only so I could eat, but so that my friends could eat. The one thing she did say is like, God, you're taking a lot of food. I'm like, I'm real hungry. Yeah. The way food bonds people is amazing. Mira, sofrito lovers, I've just been talking shit, reminiscing. Filipino food got me nostalgic over high school and lost loves and food cultural exchanges. Sofrito lovers, you guys know me. I never finish food on camera. I'm going to finish my dinner. I hope whatever you eating was just as good. Go out there, try a Filipino restaurant. Get on Google, wherever you are. Look for a closest Filipino restaurant and go enjoy some of that food. It's amazing. It's an amazing cuisine. Delicious, savory, tangy. So many different flavors. Just amazing. Mira, sofrito lovers, I love you guys. We'll stay in touch. I'll see you next week. Como siempre, mucho, mucho amor. Go out there, go have some culinary adventures. Start with some Filipino food. Como siempre, mucho amor.